Aside from the peak body groups, there were one or two genuine business leaders at the tax meet today. And earlier, I spoke with one of them, James MacKenzie. After a pretty stellar career in chartered accounting, Mr MacKenzie has become a veteran of the boardroom and, of course, its audit committees. He's currently chairman of both Pacific Brands and the Mirvac Group. James MacKenzie, thanks for joining us down there.
Pleasure, Tiki.
Now, I see one of the more successful venture capital business millionaires, Mark Carnegie, is there at the forum, and he's saying that people like him are not being taxed enough. In fact, the wealthiest 15% of the population should pay an extra 15% in tax. Is he right?
Well, I think the tax reform today has gone pretty much as expected, except for Mark's suggestion. And I think that this is all framed in the context of people are looking at tax reform from the point of view of being net revenue neutral, when really, as Mark says, we need to be net revenue positive.
Is he right? Are the rich really getting richer? Is there more of a gap, and should there be somehow a better distribution?
I think that what we're talking about and what the Prime Minister has said, we're talking about fairness and ensuring that people aren't left behind. And I think if we are going to have a fair tax system and if people are not going to be left behind, there's certainly a case for what Mark argues.
Now, I gather you've had a bit of an engagement with the Tax Commissioner.
One of the things that concerned me, and it wasn't having a go at the Taxation Commissioner, it was having a go at the groups of people who deal with the Taxation Commissioner and the Tax Commissioner. I sat down with a group of people who both advised me and who were former partners of mine yesterday to talk about the issues that they'd like to see covered off at the summit. And I was amazed, I think I can use that word in the Oxford Dictionary sense of the word, amazed at the somewhat rancid nature of the relationship between the tax professionals and the tax office. Now, I'm not saying for one moment that it's the fault of the tax office. What I am saying is if we're going to have an agile and responsive tax system, we need to have a better form of dealing with the types of issues that actually act as a drag on the economy, both in terms of transactions and just in terms of general operations.
What were your suggestions? Would that involve some sort of higher board or something?
Well, at the moment, as I understand it, we've got a tax ombudsman, we've got a Register General, we've got a taxation advisory board, and we've got a taxation commissioner. It would seem to me that the Reserve Bank model, where you've got a board, would perhaps facilitate a better environment that currently exists between the tax office and the advisory profession that deal with him.
James, you chair Pacific Brands, a big manufacturer, retailer. There's a lot of talk about what could be done about manufacturing, and it seems to me that the Treasurer, Wayne Swan, was fairly open to the idea of looking at tax changes that might help manufacturing. Am I right?
Oh, look, I think if I can just go back a little bit further, one of the things that is really obvious and perhaps not as predictable as I thought is just how enthusiastically people in the room seem to embrace the Henry report, the Henry review, the results of the Henry review. The difficulty, of course, with Dr Henry's recommendations is they were to be implemented over a 10-year period, and in Australia, because of our political system, there's every likelihood that we might have three governments, or every chance that we could have three governments during that 10-year period. So the elephant in the room here is the fact that to get the tax reform, the reform to the tax system that we need bipartisan support. Notwithstanding the enthusiasm for making changes that have been ventilated today, the elephant in the room is bipartisan support. The opposition are going to have to get on board.
One of the things, though, that the Treasurer has flagged is tax changes to loosen up how businesses can use their financial losses better. And also he talked about putting in place some business measures which reflect the pressure that businesses, like businesses in manufacturing, are under, so that they can continue to employ and invest. It does sound as though he was trying to be very positive in terms of supporting the manufacturing sector.
He was, and those sorts of suggestions were well ventilated and well supported. And I think the challenge is now for the government to proceed and implement them. And certainly I'm optimistic that that's what we'll see.
Let me pull you in on the gaming tax because, apart from anything else, I know you are a great lover and supporter of Hawthorn. Hawthorn President Jeff Kennett the other day was saying this is an extraordinary attack on the not-for-profit sector. Should there be a tax?
I think we've got to start on this issue by saying, should something be done about problem gambling? And that's a question that I'm confident a very large majority of the community would say we need to do something about. What I find disturbing is the proposal that is being discussed now by Senator Xenophon and Mr Wilkie is being presented to the Parliament without any economic impact statement. Now, my days as a public servant, I've been responsible for insurance premiums, and a 2% change in an insurance premium was required to go to the executive form of government with an economic impact statement. What we're talking about here are changes which have never been implemented anywhere else in the world, and the Parliament is being asked to approve those without any economic impact statement. We do not understand what the costs will be, and as the Prime Minister and everybody who has participated in this forum has recognised, we operate in a patchwork, a multi-speed economy, and it's those sectors of the economy which are not going well, that are underperforming, that on the face of it look more likely to be hit, and hit quite significantly by the effect of these restrictions.
Finally, James MacKenzie, interest rates on hold today, but the Reserve Bank seemed very open to the idea of, or more open to the idea of a cut in rates shortly. How urgent is an interest rate cut?
Anything that can be done to stimulate retail sales in the lead up to Christmas, an interest rate cut on Melbourne Cup Day would be something that people involved in the retail trade would really appreciate.
James MacKenzie, it's nice to see real business represented down there. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tiggy.